Imagine this. You're sitting in a crowded room, the air thick with the scent of coffee and perfume. Conversations overlap, creating a cacophony of laughter and chatter, but you feel like an outsider looking in. The topic shifts to something everyone seems to agree on, politics perhaps, or the latest social trend, and you watch as heads nod in unison, smiles plastered on faces, a silent pact of consensus. You sense the expectation to join in, to echo their sentiments, to be part of the tribe, but deep inside, a whisper of doubt flickers, a quiet voice that says, "This doesn't feel right." Yet you stay silent, nodding along, the warmth of your drink seeping through the cup, a stark contrast to the chill of your unease. Why do you do it? Why do you swallow your truth, even when it claws at your throat, begging to be spoken? What is it about this moment, this seemingly harmless act of blending in that feels both comforting and suffocating at the same time? Here's the paradox. Conformity promises safety. It's a shield against judgment, rejection, and the sharp sting of standing out. In a world that punishes difference, blending in feels like survival. But what if that shield is also a prison? What if the very act of conforming, the thing that makes you feel safe, is slowly, silently destroying your soul? Think about it. Every time you choose to nod along, to suppress your authentic voice, to wear the mask that society hands you, a piece of your essence withers. It's not a dramatic death, not a sudden collapse. It's a slow erosion, like a tree forced to grow in the shade, its branches stunted, its leaves pale and brittle. The soul, like that tree, needs the sunlight of authenticity to thrive. Without it, its roots weaken, its trunk bends unnaturally, and it becomes a shadow of what it was meant to be, fragile, dependent on the approval of others, and vulnerable to the winds of external influence. And yet you keep choosing the shade. You keep choosing the comfort of the crowd, even as that nagging voice grows louder, warning you that something is wrong. Why? What is it about conformity that feels so seductive, so necessary, even when you know it's costing you your truth? Perhaps it's because the alternative feels terrifying. To stand alone, to speak your mind, to be the one who says, "I don't agree," is to risk everything: belonging, acceptance, love. It's to face the possibility of being cast out, labeled as difficult, arrogant, or worse, irrelevant. And in a world where connection is currency, isolation feels like death. But here's the great question, the one that haunts you in the quiet moments when the crowd fades and you're left with yourself. What if the real death is not in standing alone, but in living a life that isn't yours? What if the soul dies not from rejection, but from betrayal? The betrayal of your own truth, your own voice, your own path. Consider Socrates, who chose death over conformity. Condemned for corrupting the youth of Athens with his ideas, he refused to renounce his beliefs, even when faced with execution. His soul remained intact, unshaken, while those who silenced him were prisoners of their own fear, chained to the opinions of the masses. Socrates understood something that most never grasp. The soul cannot be destroyed by external forces, only by the choices you make against it. And yet you, sitting in that room, clutching your drink, smiling politely, are making a different choice, a quieter, safer, soul-crushing choice. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a path out of the shade, a way to step into the sunlight and let your soul breathe again. It begins with understanding why conformity feels so safe and why it's a trap. It begins with uncovering the hidden forces, both in society and within your own mind that keep you chained to the crowd. In the depths of your psyche, in the shadows you avoid, lies the answer. And once you see it, once you confront it, you'll never look at that crowded room the same way again. You felt it, that moment, when you swallow your truth, when you choose the nod over the dissent, when you let the crowd's rhythm drown out your own. It's not just a fleeting choice. It's a surrender. But why is it so hard to resist? Why does conformity wrap itself around you like a second skin? So familiar, you barely notice it's there. To understand this, you need to dig deeper, past the surface of social pressures, into the psychological and philosophical roots that make conformity not just tempting, but almost inevitable. At its core, conformity is a survival instinct. Your brain is wired for it. Thousands of years ago, fitting in meant the difference between life and death. To be part of the tribe was to have food, shelter, protection. To be cast out was to face the wilderness alone, predators, starvation, oblivion. That ancient wiring still hums in your neurons, whispering that belonging is safety, that difference is danger. Neuroscientists call this the social brain hypothesis. Your mind is built to prioritize group cohesion over individual expression. When you conform, your brain rewards you with a hit of dopamine, a chemical pat on the back for staying in line. But when you step out of sync, it floods you with cortisol. Stress hormone, screaming, "Get back, you're exposed." This isn't just biology. It's psychology amplified by culture. From the moment you're born, society hands you a script. Parents, teachers, peers, they all teach you the rules, what to say, how to act, what to value. These aren't just suggestions, they're commandments, etched into your psyche through praise and punishment. Say the right thing, and you're rewarded with smiles, acceptance, love. Say the wrong thing, and you are met with silence, ridicule, or worse, rejection. Over time, you learn to anticipate the crowd's expectations, to shape yourself into a version that fits. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask you wear to navigate the world. It's useful, even necessary, but when it becomes your identity, you lose touch with the deeper self beneath it. The soul, Jung warned, cannot thrive in a cage, no matter how gilded. Philosophically, this is where the problem deepens. Friedrich Nietzsche saw conformity as a symptom of herd. Morality, a collective cowardice that sacrifices the individual for the sake of the group. The herd, he argued, fears the strong, the different, the ones who dare to think for themselves. So it creates rules, unspoken, insidious, to keep everyone in check. These rules aren't about truth or virtue. They're about control. They're designed to make you small, predictable, manageable. Nietzsche's contempt for this was visceral. He called it a slave morality, a way of living that trades freedom for comfort, greatness for mediocrity. When you conform, you're not just following the crowd, you're enslaving yourself to it. Arthur Schopenhauer took this further, framing conformity as a betrayal of the individual's inner purpose. He believed that each person has a unique will, a driving force that seeks expression through art, thought, or action. But society, with its endless demands for compliance, smothers that will. It tells you to want what everyone else wants, to think what everyone else thinks, to live a life that's not yours. For Schopenhauer, this was a kind of spiritual death, a slow suffocation of the soul's need to create, to be, to matter. And then there's the societal machinery that keeps this cycle spinning. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, showed us a future where conformity isn't enforced with chains, but with pleasures, distractions, comforts, illusions of happiness. Sound familiar? Scroll through your feed, and you'll see it. A world that rewards sameness with likes, follows, and fleeting validation. Algorithms amplify this, curating your reality to reinforce what's popular, what's safe. You're not just conforming to people anymore, you're conforming to systems, to invisible codes that shape what you see, what you believe, what you become. But here's the hidden kicker. Conformity doesn't just suppress your individuality, it warps it. When you spend your life mimicking others, you start to lose the ability to know yourself. Your desires, your dreams, your truths, they blur into the noise of the crowd. Jean-Paul Sartre called this bad faith, the act of lying to yourself about who you are to avoid the responsibility of freedom. It's why you might feel a pang of emptiness even when you're surrounded by people. Why success can feel hollow. Why you sometimes look in the mirror and wonder, who am I? This is the real tragedy. Conformity doesn't just hide your soul. It makes you a stranger to it. And the longer you stay in that stranger's skin, the harder it is to find your way back. You become a ghost in your own life, going through the motions, chasing shadows of meaning that vanish when you reach for them. The crowd tells you this is normal, that this is how it's supposed to be. But normal isn't the same as alive. Normal is just what happens when you stop asking questions, when you stop listening to the voice inside you that's screaming for something more. And that voice, it's still there, faint but persistent, waiting for you to hear it. It's the part of you that knows conformity is a trap, that safety is a lie, that your soul is starving for something real. But to hear it, you have to face the consequences of ignoring it. You have to see what conformity is doing to you, to your life, to the world around you. Because once you see that, once you feel the full weight of what's at stake, you'll realize that staying silent, staying safe, is no longer an option. The question now is, what happens when you keep choosing the crowd over your soul? What does it cost, not just today, but in the long run? And what would it mean to choose differently? So you felt the pull to conform. Maybe you've even given in. It's easy to see why. Blending into the crowd feels safe, like a warm blanket on a cold night. But what you don't see, what's hidden beneath that comfort, is the slow unraveling of something vital. Your soul. Conformity doesn't just affect you in the moment. It ripples outward, shaping your life and the world around you in ways you might not expect. Let's peel back the layers and look at the unseen consequences. First, there's the personal cost. When you conform, you're not just tweaking your behavior to fit in, you are silencing parts of yourself. That unique spark, the one that makes you you, gets buried under layers of shoulds and musts. Over time, this suppression doesn't just fade into the background, it builds up. You might feel it as a vague unease at first, a restlessness you can't explain. Then it grows into something heavier, anxiety that keeps you up at night, depression that drags you down, or a hollow emptiness that no amount of likes, applause, or approval can fill. Psychologists call this the shadow, the unexpressed parts of your psyche. When you ignore it, it doesn't go away. It festers quietly, pulling the strings of your life. But it's not just about you. Conformity has a collective price tag too. Imagine a world where everyone follows the same script, thinks the same thoughts, chases the same goals. It's not a utopia. It's a wasteland. Diversity of thought, the clash of ideas, the friction of individuality, that's what fuels creativity, innovation, progress. When you conform, you're not just dimming your own light. You're robbing the world of what you could have offered. Think of the inventions never built, the books never written, the questions never asked, all because someone chose the safety of the crowd over the risk of standing out. And then there's the moral dimension. Conformity often means going along with what's normal, even when it's wrong. History is littered with examples. People staying silent during injustice, nodding along to harmful norms, following orders they knew were unethical, all because it was easier than breaking rank. When you conform, you hand over your moral compass to the group. You stop asking, "Is this right?" and start asking, "Is this what everyone else is doing?" That's a dangerous shift because the crowd isn't always wise. It's just loud. Society loves this, of course. Conformity keeps things predictable. It's why there are unspoken rules everywhere you look. How to dress for work, what to post online, which opinions are acceptable. These norms aren't just suggestions. They're tools of control, keeping you in line, making sure you don't rock the boat. And the more you follow them, the tighter their grip becomes. You start policing yourself, second-guessing your instincts, swallowing your words before they even form. It's a quiet surrender, but a surrender all the same. The irony. You think you're choosing peace, but you're actually choosing stagnation. Conformity traps you in a smaller version of yourself. You stop growing, stop questioning, stop reaching for anything beyond what's handed to you. Philosophers like Nietzsche saw this as a betrayal of your potential, a refusal to tap into the raw creative energy that could push you beyond the ordinary. Instead, you settle for a life that's comfortable but lifeless, predictable but unfulfilling. And the world reflects this back at you. Look at the culture we've built. Endless feeds of curated perfection, echo chambers of recycled opinions, a relentless push to fit in or fade out. It's not an accident. It's a system designed to keep you distracted, docile, and dependent, happy enough to stay put, but not alive enough to break free. Aldous Huxley warned us about this in Brave New World, a society where conformity isn't forced through pain, but seduced through pleasure. We're not far off. But here's the good news. It's not too late. The consequences of conformity are steep, but they're not inevitable. You can choose differently. It starts with small acts, saying what you really think, chasing what sets your soul on fire, stepping out of the shadows even when it's uncomfortable. It's not easy. Breaking free means facing the fear of rejection, the weight of responsibility, the uncertainty of a path that's yours alone. But the alternative, staying small, staying safe, staying at real cost of conformity. It's your vitality, your originality, your freedom. It's the life you could have lived, the world you could have shaped, the person you could have become. And the stakes, they're everything. Because every time you choose the crowd over your soul, you're not just losing a moment, you're losing yourself. The next step is up to you. Will you keep sleepwalking through a life that's not yours? Or will you wake up and claim the one that is? The discomfort of that choice might sting, but the reward, a life that's truly alive, is worth it. You've seen the cost. You felt the pain. Weight of conformity pressing down on your chest, suffocating your voice, dimming your light. It's not just a vague unease anymore. It's a quiet scream inside you, begging to be heard. But knowing the problem isn't enough. You need a way out, a rebellion. Not the kind that shouts in the streets or waves banners, but the kind that happens in the silent chambers of your mind, where the real battle is fought. This is where the shift begins. The moment you stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I think?" It's a simple question, but it's revolutionary. It's the spark that lights the fire of defiance, the first crack in the armor of conformity. Because the truth is, the world doesn't own your thoughts. You do. And reclaiming them is the first step toward freedom. But let's be clear, this isn't easy. Conformity isn't just a habit. It's a survival mechanism wired into your brain. Your ancestors lived in tribes where being different meant being left behind. And that primal fear still lingers. It's why your heart races when you think about speaking up, why your palms sweat when you consider going against the grain. Your body is screaming, "Don't do it. It's not safe." But here's the radical truth. Safety is overrated. Safety keeps you small. Safety keeps you stuck. And safety in this case is a lie. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this better than most. He wrote about the herd mentality, the way people cling to the crowd because it's easier than standing alone. But he also spoke of the Übermensch, the one who dares to create their own values, their own path, even when it means walking through fire. Nietzsche didn't promise comfort. He promised power. The power that comes from owning your truth no matter the cost. And that power, it's intoxicating. It's the kind of freedom that makes the world feel wide open, like you're breathing for the first time. So how do you tap into it? How do you break free from the invisible chains of conformity? Step 1. Embrace the discomfort. The first act of rebellion is to lean into the fear, not away from it. When you feel that knot in your stomach, that tightness in your throat, don't run. Stay. Let it burn. Because on the other side of that discomfort is clarity. Carl Jung called this shadow work. Facing the parts of yourself you've hidden, the truths you've buried. It's messy, it's painful, but it's also where your power lies. The more you confront your fears, the less they control you. And the less they control you, the freer you become. Step 2. Question everything. Not just the big things like societal norms or cultural expectations, but the small ones too. Why do you dress the way you do? Why do you laugh at jokes that aren't funny? Why do you say yes when you mean no? Every time you catch yourself following a script that isn't yours, pause. Ask, is this me or is this what I've been taught to be? It's a simple question, but it cuts through the noise like a blade. And with each answer you chip away at the facade. Step 3. Find your tribe, but not the one you think. You don't need a crowd. You need a handful of people who see you, who challenge you, who don't flinch when you show up as your unfiltered self. These aren't the ones who nod along to keep the peace. They're the ones who push you to grow, even when it stings. Jean-Paul Sartre said, "Hell is other people," but he was wrong. Hell is the wrong people, the right ones. They're your lifeline. They remind you that you're not alone in your rebellion, that there's a world beyond the herd. Step 4. Act, even when it's small. Rebellion doesn't always mean grand gestures. Sometimes it's as quiet as saying, "I disagree," in a room full of yes men. Sometimes it's choosing to walk away from a conversation that doesn't serve you. Sometimes it's wearing what you want, not what's trending. These acts might seem insignificant, but they're not. They're declarations of independence. They're you planting your flag in the ground and saying, "This is mine." And here's where history comes in. Think of Galileo, who dared to say the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, even when it cost him his freedom. Or Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her seat, sparking a movement that changed the world. These weren't people born with superhuman courage. They were ordinary humans who chose in a single moment to stop conforming. And in that choice, they became extraordinary. But you don't have to change the world, to break free. You just have to change your world. Because the real rebellion isn't against society. It's against the version of yourself that's been shaped by it. It's against the voice in your head that says, fit in, don't make waves, stay small. That voice isn't yours. It's the echo of 1,000 expectations, 1,000 fears, 1,000 lies. And the moment you stop listening to it, you start to hear something else, your own voice, clear and unshaken. This is where the magic happens. When you stop conforming, you stop leaking energy into things that don't matter. You stop chasing approval and start chasing truth. You stop being a spectator in your life and start being the author. And with each step, you feel it, a quiet power building inside you, a sense of aliveness that conformity could never give. But here's the catch. Freedom isn't free. It comes with a price. You'll lose people. You'll face rejection. You'll feel the sting of being misunderstood. And in those moments, the temptation to crawl back to the safety of the crowd will be strong. But remember this, every time you choose your truth over their comfort, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. You're reclaiming the parts of yourself that conformity tried to steal. And that, my friend, is the beginning of something unstoppable. Because once you taste this kind of freedom, there's no going back. You'll wonder how you ever lived any other way. You'll see the world with new eyes, sharp and unclouded, and you'll realize that the soul doesn't just survive rebellion, it demands it. But there's one more layer to this. One final truth that ties it all together. It's the deepest realization of all, the one that makes everything click into place. And once you see it, you'll never look at conformity or yourself the same way again. You've walked the path. You've felt the weight of conformity, seen its hidden claws, and tasted the fire of rebellion. You've begun to break free, to carve out a space where your soul can breathe. But there's one final truth waiting for you, a revelation so profound, it will shift the very ground beneath your feet. It's not just about escaping conformity. It's about understanding why you were drawn to it in the first place, and what lies on the underside of that choice. This is the moment where everything comes into focus, where the fog lifts and you see your life, your soul, your existence with a clarity that haunts and liberates in equal measure. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping around you, the vastness of the world stretching out below. You're alone, but not lonely. For the first time, you feel the full weight of your own existence, not as a burden, but as a gift. Realize that conformity wasn't just about safety, it was about avoidance. You weren't just hiding from the judgment of others, you were hiding from yourself, from the responsibility of being you, from the terrifying, exhilarating truth that you are not a fragment of the crowd, but a singular, unrepeatable force in the universe. This is the ultimate truth. Your soul is not meant to blend in, it is meant to create. Conformity feels safe because it lets you sidestep the burden of creation, the risk of defining your own meaning in a world that offers none. But that safety is a mirage. It keeps you from the one thing that makes life worth living, the act of bringing something new into being, whether it's an idea, a truth, a work of art, or simply the courage to live as yourself. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and philosopher, understood this better than most. In man's search for meaning, He wrote that life doesn't hand you purpose, you must forge it. Even in the darkest moments, surrounded by suffering, Frankl found that those who survived were the ones who chose to create meaning, who refused to let the world define them. Conformity is the opposite of this. It's surrendering your power to create, handing your purpose over to the crowd, letting their voices drown out your own. And in doing so, you don't just lose your soul, you lose the chance to discover what it was capable of. But here's the paradox that will stay with you. The moment you stop conforming, you don't just reclaim your soul, you transcend it. You become more than a single self, more than a collection of thoughts and feelings. You tap into something eternal, something Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, the shared well of human experience, where archetypes and dreams are born. When you choose authenticity, you're not just living for yourself, you're adding to the world tapestry of existence, contributing something that echoes beyond your lifetime. You become a creator, not a consumer, a flame, not a shadow. And this is where the world shifts. You start to see conformity for what it is, a distraction, a sedative, a way to keep you from the raw, messy, beautiful work of being human. You realize that every time you chose to nod along, to silence your truth, to shrink into someone else's mold, you weren't protecting yourself. You were delaying your own awakening. But now, with your eyes open, you can't unsee it. The crowd doesn't look safe anymore. It looks asleep. The rules don't look necessary. They look arbitrary. And the fear of standing out, it's still there. But it's smaller now, dwarfed by the vastness of what you could become. So what does this mean for you, right now, in this moment? It means you have a choice, not a one-time decision, but a daily, hourly, moment-by-moment commitment to live as yourself, no matter the cost. It means saying yes to the discomfort, the uncertainty, the vulnerability of being seen. It means trusting that your soul, flawed, fragile, and fiercely alive, is enough, more than enough. It's the raw material of something extraordinary. Look back at your life. Think of the moments when you felt most alive, when you spoke your truth, when you took a risk, when you created something that was yours alone. Those weren't accidents. They were glimpses of your soul breaking through, reminding you who you are. Now imagine a life built on those moments, not as fleeting sparks, but as a steady fire. That's what's waiting for you on the other side of conformity. This is your call to action, your final challenge. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the crowd to approve, for the world to make sense, for the fear to disappear. Start now. Speak the truth that's burning in your chest. Chase the dream that keeps you up at night. Live the life that only you can live, because the world doesn't need another echo. It needs your voice and your soul. It's not here to survive. It's here to soar. As you stand on that cliff, the wind still howling, the horizon endless, ask yourself one last question. What would happen if I stopped hiding? The answer isn't out there in the crowd. It's inside you, waiting to be unleashed. Step forward, let it burn, let it live. And when you do, you'll find that the soul you thought you were protecting was never in danger. It was only waiting for you to set it free.